All right. Do you want me to introduce myself and Ball?
Yes, I
I am,
do.
yes, I'm Hannah Chapman. I am the founder and wealth advisor at X Squared Wealth Planning, and I help visionary entrepreneurs, especially those with multiple income streams, build wealth with joy and ease. And what that means to me is that I not only help my entrepreneur clients, figure out what's going on in their business financially, figure out what's going on in their personal life financially, and create a roadmap that really connects the two, just like a puzzle. But when things get hard, when things happen in your business, when things are, revenue is stuck or you're not, sure what your next step is, I really dive in with my clients and help them get unstuck from a mindset and an emotional standpoint, because money is nearly always attached to emotions and feelings and fears and shame and guilt and all of the things. So there is a lot of data and there's a lot of charts and graphs and taxes and all the things that we'll talk about some of that today. And those are really important pieces to be able to make good decisions about, but we can't make good decisions about those numbers unless you feel good about the decisions that you're making. So it's really a marriage of those two pieces together. And I find that entrepreneurs, especially business owners, when we're the ones out there doing the thing, it's on us. We are responsible for all of it. We really need someone else to support and help us see the places, right, where things are not lining up, and how we can lift up to a big 30,000-foot view to start making decisions that are good from a holistic standpoint. So that's a little bit of how I work with my clients. And today, Inbal had invited me to come in and talk a little bit about tax planning for entrepreneurs, because when you aren't ready, or when you are starting to make income in a new way, like going from W-2 to self-employment, or if you still have a W-2 and you're adding on self-employment income, or say you get a giant contract in your business and suddenly you go from making $40,000 in your business to 300, 400, 500,000 in your business. What tends to happen is you deal with it during January to December. You're just dealing with it. And then when March and April of the next year come around, suddenly you've got 30 or 60 or $100,000 of taxes due that you did not plan for, and you get the oh shit moment. Like, wow, I did not plan for that. What do I do now? So instead of having that oh shit moment next year, you can actually take steps to plan for that ahead of time. And then when you get to tax time in the following year, you can be prepared. If you've over saved, if you've over prepped for taxes, what that also means is, one, good job. Two, you can now defer that either to retirement savings to defer some more taxes. You can shift that other places in your business. There is no downside to pulling those tax dollars away ahead of time and setting them aside. So that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. And I wanted to tailor it a little bit because it can be so different if you're fully self-employed, if you've got W-2 income, if it's a mix of different things. Oh, we've got one other. Hello, Tabitha. Oh, hi, Tabitha. So I would love to take a little bit of a poll and find out what would be most useful to dive into first, whether that is truly just like, let's look at the self-employment income and ignore everything else, or if it's, like, let's assess the W-2 income and add in the self-employment income. What's the pulse that you have involved on the group and when people are looking at the recording, what is most helpful?
I don't know if anybody has a W-2. Am I correct? No W-2, no W-2. I don't either.
Okay.
So,
Okay, perfect. So then we will go straight to just self-employment income. Now, one of the big first steps that we need to make sure that we're doing is paying ourselves in the first place.
Yes, please.
Right? So step one, yes, revenue in your business. Step two is paying yourself. And actually I have a couple of roadmaps and lead magnets, but really they're completely free PDF resources that I'll share as well that will help walk through a little bit. Hello, Jennifer. Nice to see you. Right now we're talking about how to plan for your taxes for the upcoming year, starting right now in May. So one of the, again, first pieces is once you've got revenue in your business, we're going to use some just round numbers to make it easy and pretend like that's the only income. So let's say you're going to make $100,000 in the whole year. So that's January to December. You're going to have $100,000 of profit. So that's after you've got your deductions and all that. That's all done. You've got $100,000. What that is going to look like tax-wise, I'm going to pull up my calculator and everything for you, is, and now caveat being that I am not a CPA and your specific tax situation is going to vary. So always check with your own bookkeeper, tax prep, all of those things. But typically that $100,000 of profit is going to turn into $80,000 of taxable income. And who knows what types of tax you have to pay on that. There are several. You got your self-employment, your income tax,
state tax.
state tax. What's the other big one for self-employed? Your FICA taxes, right? Social Security, Medicare. So that self-employment tax number. So off of $100,000 of income, you're probably going to be in, we'll say, the 22% tax bracket. So, and you're going to pay roughly 15.7% self-employment tax. And depending on what state you're in, you're going to have your state tax on top of that as well, right? So just as we've got 22 plus 15 plus, we'll say 3 for any average state, 37. So 40%. You're probably going to have a $32,000 total tax bill off of that whole income if you have $100,000 of profit, give or take. If you've got kids, things are going to change, right? All of that, but just round about $32,000. So if you look at that from the perspective of you just used all of your business income, you didn't do anything special to plan for that. How does that feel if you get to March and your tax preparer says you have a $32,000 tax bill? Right? It does. It does. Thank you for chiming in, Deb. It does. It feels like you can feel it like right now, right? Like that doesn't feel good. So instead of having that, you're feeling like I can't do this, that's scary, it's going to ruin my whole year, and play catch up, right? So you're going to get that tax bill, you're going to have to play catch up, you're going to have to pay it off. And then through the rest of the year, you're like, oh, now I'm just like catching up, right? So you're always on the back foot. You're always in that cycle of playing catch up. Instead, if we take that tax bill, divide it by 12, you've got $2,600 a month roughly to save for taxes. And so what I propose with my clients and how I work with them is I split their income into percentages. I help them split their income into percentages that will carry them through the year, no matter how their income fluctuates. So when you are, getting your deposits into your account, however you receive them, when you reconcile, so let's say you get, I'm still doing more math here. Let's say you get that $100,000 as $8,000 a month. That means you're going to be saving about 25% of it straight into a tax account. And so when we split our income, that's how we start to base our, what do you need to do for revenue? What do you need to take as profit? What do you need to take as owner's pay? All of those pieces of the puzzle, we start to create percentages around those. And then that way, okay, when I get all of my income in, 25% is going to come off and go into a tax hold. And then the other percentages, some of them will be for operational expenses. Some of them will be for owner's draw to cover what you need to run your household, right? And those are going to be your main buckets. Then let's say you get a contract, or let's say your sales start booming in October or November. When you have a system in place, when you are using percentages like that, if your sales go up or they go down, you just use the percentage. You don't have to necessarily worry about, okay, I made $20,000 this month instead of 8. You're still going to use 25%. You're going to take 25% and put that into your tax account. If you make $6,000 that month instead, you're going to take 25% and put it into your tax account. Now, hopefully you're able to, create a little bit more stability for your income. And that's like another topic. We can talk about that a little bit more too. We'll have plenty of time to talk through some different questions. But for the most part, when we break things into percentages, that helps us frame all of our income, no matter how it fluctuates. Do we have any questions right from there?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you said, let's say you get $100,000 income and you said $80,000 is taxable, like where did that $20,000 go?
Yeah, so that is on self-employment, there's an automatic 20% off the top.
Oh, okay.
That comes off.
Okay, so 20%, not 20,000.
Right. Yeah. So if it was
Okay.
200,000, it would have been, $40,000.
40,000. Okay.
That's that. Yeah. Qualified business income.
Okay.
20,000 off the top. I could have even said, we've already taken that into account too. Right. But yes, so that's that, but it truly is, roughly around 30 grand that people tend to see when they make in that 100 plus range. And again, that can feel scary if you're like, okay, I've been making $8,000 a month, I'm paying my bills, but I don't have, like $30,000 like saved up. Where would I have found that? Right. We have to create it. So right now in May of 2022, what you want to do, and what I do with my clients is we look at your reconciliation so far. So what have you made from January to May? What have you spent, right? If you have QuickBooks or something similar, hopefully everyone has some sort of bookkeeping something, and look at that, the profit, the spread. I know in mine, it shows me like, here's your business spending and here's your, business income, right? So, and then do that calculation, right? So let's figure out what your number would be that you should have. What's 25% roughly of what you've made so far? Is there an amount that you need to catch up on? There might be. So if we are able to catch up on that amount, so if that's, say you do need to have $7,000 to $10,000 in your tax account right now, based on the income you've had so far, how can you incorporate that into the rest of the year? So that way you are doing your correct percentage for June through December. And you're also adding on that little bit that's going to come in from, that you haven't saved yet. I'll give you a really good example from one of my clients who is a consultant. And she's had, I think, about $130,000 of income so far this year. And for her, she had some cash saved in some other savings accounts in her business account. So she had a good amount of cash. So when we did her plan, what that looked like was, hey, you've got cash reserves in different places. We're going to carve off 8,500 and put that. She didn't have her specific account set up. So we carved off 8,500 and put that into a tax account. And now every time she reconciles each month, she's going to do hers is 15%. We're going to carve off 15% and put it on top of that. So it's a matter of balancing what's already there and then projecting forward for the rest of the year and basing it just on percentages. So yeah, there's not necessarily a good visual for that other than the numbers that we're talking about. But what other questions are coming up around that?
I have another question if nobody has a question.
Yeah.
So like, I'll just use myself as an example. So I wasn't making any revenue like the first 2 years of my business. Basically, like everything that was going in was like towards my business.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm making a little bit of revenue, but all that is going back into the business. So is it not considered like a write-off and it won't balance? Like I'm not putting anything in my pocket.
It depends on what kind of expenses they are. So it sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like they would all be like literally deductible business expenses. If you
like operating costs, developer, like all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, you're still like basically running at a deficit, right? Or like running at zero.
Yeah.
So in that case, yeah, you wouldn't be creating any income to yourself. So have you taken any income at all from your business? No. Okay. Then yeah, there's not necessarily a tax issue that you should have, but you'll definitely ask your CPA. It would be a good time to check in if you have that kind of question. Like, hey, this just popped up. I just want to ask, make sure that nothing that I'm doing here is going to cause tax issues.
Okay. Yeah, nobody likes tax issues.
Right? Yeah. Your husband makes money, right? On a W-2 basis. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he's paying taxes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Through his payroll.
Yeah. He's paying taxes through his payroll.
Right. So yeah, if you were to start taking a paycheck, or if you were to start, if your revenue, say you check with your tax prep person and they say, oh, nope, so far here's your QuickBooks. They're like this, spending and income are equal. There's no tax issue. But if that were to change going forward, that's where you would want to start making sure that you're carving off a percentage.
Okay.
Because if you say things open up, right, and you get 1,000 new subscribers and income just starts blowing up in the last 4 months of the year, that happens. Mm-hmm. Like that's not a thing that's like, oh, that's a unicorn. No, that happens with business owners, and it feels great. And then it feels scary when you come around. Okay. So for your case, that's actually a really good example. Let's say we'll even call it in, right? We'll say that's the subscribers are coming in, everything is going to be there, and there's going to be this huge, beautiful influx. And so what would that look, if you could imagine, what would that look like for you in income involved? If you let's say in the last 4 months of the year, what could you imagine that looking like?
I mean, in a beautiful world, like let's just use your $100,000.
Right. Perfect. So suddenly you have this influx of subscribers. You have $100,000 of income. Let's say you make 15,000 in September, and then 30,000 in October, and then another 20,000 each, right, in November, December. So you've got $100,000 every month when you see that income going up. So that's going to be okay. So now my expense, here's my expense line. Oh, my income is heading up and up. You're starting to see that spread, right? So whether you take that money out of the business or not, you're going to pay taxes on it
Okay.
if you're not offsetting it with expenses. But let's say you don't need to offset it. It's just purely $100,000 of income. Each month, you're going to want to pull off that 25%, right? Because
Okay.
if you do that, even if you just say, okay, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm going to pull 25% off the top, you're going to have $25,000 set aside. And then you might have to come up with 5 or 6
Okay.
rather than next year. And when you are, say, January, February, you're used to this, you're used to putting away part of your income for taxes. You're likely going to have plenty of money to cover that tax bill.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. So essentially, I'm taking it from my business account, putting it in a separate business account. Okay. And then
Yes.
saving it.
Can I
Yes,
say something there, Hannah?
absolutely.
Hey, Imbal, the thing you have to be aware of though is that if you, and not every state's a little different, but if like in Washington state, if you don't have income, if you are generating expenses and say you're not making $1 worth of income for so many years, then the state considers it a hobby. And like in Washington state,
Yeah.
I know after 3 years, like they won't let you do it. So that's the only sort of other side
Yeah.
of that. And then for me,
But
it's like,
but
I
I'm
just
making
put that in like a
income.
money mover, right? Like you can put that in a money mover account that can earn like 5% or something. It's
Mhm.
just not in just a savings account, right? Because that's a large chunk of money and you could actually earn interest on it.
Yeah.
Which
Well,
I
I'm
don't know,
making
Hannah, if
it-
you could talk about that.
I think it's like I am making income, but I also have expenses, so it offsets it. So I've heard that where it's like over 2 years or something, it's like considered a hobby or something like that. But
Yeah, and mostly what that gets into is it disallows the loss. So if they're like, sure, you can have a hobby, but we're going to consider you can't offset other expenses with a loss, is what that actually means from an IRS standpoint. So if you, like your husband's income right now, if you have a loss on your business, you could offset some of that income for the household.
yeah, and that's why, because it's a corporation, so we filed it as a corporation and then like filed the loss against our income.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll only, like Tabitha said, some states that only last for a certain amount of years, but when you have income, when you have a profit, when you can start showing a profit, you kind of restart the clock with
You
that.
set up as an S corp, Imbal?
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
And so that is actually, that's a whole beautiful set of extra, right? That actually is super helpful as well. And we can talk about that a little bit too. But overall, when you are taking income, you still want to base it on kind of that overall, you want to take an overall approach, because your S corp income, what you pay yourself as an employee of your business, that's where you have to pay your income tax, your state tax, and your self-employment. And
So
then
there is self-employment with S corp?
yes, on the wages you pay yourself.
Okay. That part I hadn't been clear about yet, but I'm not really making any money yet either. So it's like taking notes for down the road.
Yeah. So when you get, if you have that 100,000 still, and let's say you paid yourself 25, so you paid yourself a wage of 25,000, you have to pay self-employment tax, both sides, on that 25,000.
Okay.
And then this 75, you have to pay income tax, but you don't have to pay self-employment tax.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the break. It's a 15% break
Right.
So it's significant, as to, what you're saving by taking the dividend or the profit payout instead of taking it all as wages. So yeah, that can be, the S corp can be a very powerful tax planning tool. But you are still going to pay income taxes on the whole amount. You can't get away from that.
Hannah, can you speak to if you do earn interest, like if you take that money and you put it in a money mover account, that tax money that you set aside that earns like 5%, say like I have with Betterment, what does that mean? Like as far as how I claim that, or can you speak to that a little?
Yes. So you have to pay taxes on anything you earn, right? So that interest, what can you tell me, just what type of business is it? S corp, LLC? How do you file?
Oh, sorry, it's an LLC.
LLC.
Yeah, I want to move it to an S corp, but it's an LLC right now. And really it's my business is a DBA, and it's pulling money from essentially my massage business is funding my current business because it's not profitable yet. So I don't know how that works. Once I can, like, my massage business is funding the and healthcare business is funding the relationship coaching business. But yeah.
Okay. Yes. And so everything that you're doing right now is a pass through. So that means whatever income comes in passes straight through to you as the taxpayer. That's what pass through entity means. So if you take your tax money, set it aside so that, hey, you've got your tax money ready to pay, but you put it into a savings account that bears interest. Interest counts as income. So interest and dividends count as income in the current year, and you pay income taxes, just regular income tax rates on interest and dividends. So that counts if you're, an LLC, if you're an S corp, you'll still pay that regular income tax rate on the interest earned inside of your investment account. Does that make sense? I'm going to assume.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't hit the button when it worked. Yes, thank you so much for explaining that.
Yeah. So and Tabitha, you bring up a good point. And there are two sides to that coin as well, where when you are saving money for something that you are going to need it for within the next 6 to 12 months, you do not want to put that into the stock market. Everyone has probably at least heard, right? We're like having like really big volatility, ups and down days in the stock market right now. That's exactly the reason why we don't put anything that is we're saving for taxes or that's our cash reserve. We don't put that into the stock market. You certainly don't buy Bitcoin with it, right? You can do that with the money that's meant for later that can go up and down and it'll be okay. But anything that you're saving, especially for taxes, or as your cash reserve, we want it to be in something incredibly safe. And even if it means you're not going to get the biggest return on it, that's not what that money is for. That money is to be there for you, to make sure that it's there for you when you have to pay your taxes. And then let's say you do oversave. Let's say you have $32,000 saved for your taxes. You make $100,000 of income. You have $32,000 saved for your taxes. You get to tax time. Suddenly there were all these crazy tax breaks that came up and you oversaved by $8,000. So you write your checks, you are done, you have paid, you have $8,000. Now you can choose to do something different with that. You can put it, like, oh, well, I already saved it. I'm not going to miss it if I put it towards retirement or if I put it towards my second home purchase or, whatever it is, like a longer term goal. Now that can go and be invested in the stock market or in an education fund or, whatever it is that is important to you. But the first step and the step that I don't want you to miss now is to keep that money safe for taxes, first and foremost.
Hannah, I heard that there's a way to set up a 401k as an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
I absolutely can, because that will also lower your taxes, which is an awesome thing.
Mhm.
There are accounts there, they go by a few different names. You might hear solo K, solo 401k, individual 401k. There are some different ways that you can hear it talked about, but it truly is just a 401k account, and it has the same limits. So you can, if you are under 50 years old, you can contribute up to $20,500 as an employee, as yourself. And then there is also the possibility, depending on how you set it up, you also have the opportunity to match yourself. Just like if you worked for a different employer and you wanted to match, say 3% or 5%, or do even all the way up to a 25% profit sharing contribution. There are different ways that you can set it up. The basics of it, though, are that you are allowed to set it up and then fund it from the income that you make. And that money comes straight off the top of your taxable income. You don't pay taxes on that until you take it out way down the road. So that's a really powerful deferral option because it has a high limit. Yeah, some of the, like a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, if you've heard of those types of accounts, they have lower limits. You can't put as much in. And if you make too much money, if your income is too high, you also can't put money in those. So the 401k doesn't have an income limit. It doesn't matter how much you make, you can still put money into your 401k. Does that?
I'm 50. Believe it or not, I'm 50. So
Oh my God, I don't believe it.
yep. Do you happen to know the rules for people?
Yes.
I know
Yeah.
I've done a mistake like that. I should be like 23, right?
Right. Oh, it's a beautiful problem to have. No, yeah. So the limit was I think 26,000 if you're over 50.
Okay, so there's just a different limit. I can still do the same thing you just talked about, but I have a different limit.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, and it might even be higher now. 401k limit. It's still 20,500 if you're under 50, and it's 27,000 if you are over 50.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with most places, so my firm uses Schwab for our investment account. So it depends on the platform, but I know most places, and Schwab is pretty normal. Fidelity would be, similar, and TD Ameritrade, all that. There are actually very, very few fees associated with setting up an individual 401k. It's usually really cheap. So it's not like you have to go through an actuary and pay thousands of dollars a year. Once you have employees and you're providing that benefit for employees, there's a lot more, annual auditing and reporting that you have to do. Still worth it in most cases to have that benefit for your employees, but there is auditing and cost associated with that. Whereas with an individual 401k, it's usually really simple. And then you just you take that money and you invest it in, whatever the right investments are for you.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I love that question, especially since you're an S Corp, and Deb, you're an S Corp as well. For S Corp, the two that I like the best, if you do want to know, what are your options for retirement savings, individual 401k is really good. Simple IRA is the other one. Literally SIMPLE, simple IRA. And the reason I like the simple IRA is it's also, if you have employees, that one's actually easier yet than the 401k. Everyone gets their own IRA account, and it has a little bit lower limit. You can put, let me tell you what those are. Simple IRA. You can put $14,000 into the simple if you're under 50. or $17,000 into the simple IRA if you're over 50. So the limits are a little bit lower, but it just depends on what's right for your business. That one you can also match. You can match up to 3%. So you can take 3% of your profits and deduct those, defer them straight into the simple, and then those also come off your taxes.
So if we were following a profit first kind of model and we had the different like bucket accounts, pretty much similar to what you're talking about with the tax bucket, right? So then we would take the money that we put in the profit bucket for the and shuffle that over to the simple IRA. Is that what you're suggesting from that bucket? Or does
It could be. It could be. I'm so glad you brought up profit first. Yes, that is where I base most of, the bucketing strategy that I work with. I base that off of profit first, but in a minimized way.
I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. Profit first goes through he recommends up to like 12 to 15 accounts. Like it's a whole bunch.
I did 5.
Okay.
Good.
Good. Do you mind sharing what accounts you set up? I think
so I've got profit, I've got owner's comp. I've got my sticky note here. So yeah. I've got profit, owner's comp, tax, operating expense, and then income.
So owner's comp and income are separate?
Are separate. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is it does everything go straight into the income account and then you split it out?
Well, ideally, we're still at the 0. That's the plan. The plan is the 15th, whatever dates he's got. I've got them on my calendar. And I check every time. I'm like, are we there? Are we ready to move the money? So,
yeah, I love that, Deb. You are so ready. You were like right there, ready to attract. Yes.
I'm ready.
Exactly. So Deb, that's phenomenal. So what she just described is exactly the way, that I start my clients off. It's that very simplified profit first. So you have one account where all the money goes into one account from all your receipts. And then you split it into your percentages. So yeah, that tax hold account, Inbal, I think that was one of the things you mentioned. Yeah. So you don't just have a business checking account. Like that's not going to cut it. It's just not going to allow you to separate things enough. But even just a business checking and a business savings, that's not quite enough either, because that business savings then turns into, oh, well, I have it, so I'll just move it. Some of your savings, yes, but not your tax savings. Your tax savings are going to be separate and no touchy. Like as hard as you can. No, try not to touch it.
I'm bad at money. That's why when I heard about Profit First from another like-minded group gathering, I was like, I read the book and I was like, I got to do this because I know I'm not going to be able. I need to learn how to do this before I have to do this. So
yeah. Has anyone else read Profit First or know anything about it?
Yeah, our first mastermind, TJ talked about Profit First. So it was our very, very first one.
Okay, awesome.
Jennifer's not familiar, Tabitha is.
Yeah, so Jennifer, I would definitely recommend either reading or listening to. I listened to it. Mike Michalowicz is funny. So he's very animated. So yeah, I enjoyed listening to it, but having that framework, right? Having the understanding that, okay, when the money comes in, it's another way to say, give each dollar a job. Maybe that might be another thing that people have said in the word. Yeah. So every dollar has a job. You don't let your dollars just kind of like float around and accumulate in places where you don't mean for them to. Yep. Yeah. That's Tabitha. That's a great thing too. Yeah. Because that money, you shouldn't need it like tomorrow. Right. So if you can get it within 5 days, that's a perfect kind of place. So it's earning a little bit more money than if it was in a regular savings account, but it's accessible to you when you need it for your taxes. Yeah, that's great. And also, Tabitha, the thing that's nice about that is that it's a little bit separate. And so, yeah, it's not like my regular accounts, I use Mercury for my business banking. So some of my accounts are right next to each other and I just move, right? Just move the money. It's right there.
Yep.
But when you have one that's like, oh, no, that's separate and over here, it makes it a little bit harder to get to. So that's really good. Good. I'm glad you brought that up, Deb. What else? What else is coming up from a tax planning perspective or financial planning perspective, or Tabitha from, two businesses running at the same time perspective? What else is going on, or anything coming up?
Anybody have any other questions for Hannah? Sorry, I'm like getting over a cold.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna come back on video, sorry.
Right.
I just have a question. Do you guys have any recommendations on where to move the money? So like any recommended accounts?
Give me a little more context. So this is
Like,
money.
and to like earn money, like to earn interest, like any suggestions that, you can leave it. So instead of a high yield savings, are there any other type of accounts or where it should sit? So for tax purposes or, just separating the money?
Yeah. So it depends on when you need the money. So if it's tax money, leaving it in a money market or a high interest savings is the best bet for your tax money.
Mhm.
If you have more than that, if you've got more coming in, then you're spending what you want and you're saving for your taxes and you're saving for retirement, actually even retirement or tax deferred savings of whatever sort. Those dollars, the extra dollars, that would be where we would start looking at investment type accounts, and looking at what term is this for. So when you're thinking about extra money, do you have a timeline? I can guide you a little bit more if I know what timeline you want it right now. Do you want it to grow for the future? 10
No,
years?
I just really wanted it for like where to leave the money to sit for tax purposes,
Yeah, high interest savings
Okay.
would be the best. I know Tabitha mentioned Betterment with a
Mhm.
pretty decent interest rate. So I would pick something like that again, so it's not going to fluctuate. Otherwise, there's just not, interest rates are just really low across the board right now. And there's not a lot of like purely secure high interest options out there where you can get your money back when you need it.
Got it. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Tabitha, so you asked what systems do you have? And in what context? If you can elaborate for me a little bit, I can help you with that a little more. I'm guessing, or I can start, sorry, can talk around the year. Like tax planning throughout the year, that kind of thing. Plan for tax season. Yeah. So personally, like I use this exact same system. I have my Profit First account, set up so that I'm moving money every single time. So for me, I started that last year, but so in January, I, have a clean slate and I'm starting every time I get paid. I get paid on the 4th and the 18th are the two pay dates through my company. So every time I get paid, I use a 15%. I take 15% off the top and put that into my tax account. I take 5% off the top and put that into my profit account. And then the rest is divided between owner's pay and operating expenses, depending on what's coming up. So yeah, that way that tax account is always being funded on a regular basis. And I just have it in a savings account. I think it earns like 1%. So it's not anything fancy, but on the investment side, all of my investment accounts are at Schwab and they are invested in an aggressive way, right? So they are doing this with the stock market right now. But yeah, that's money for the future. Reconciling accounts. I reconcile again. So the way that I'm paid, it's through my affiliate company. So they do all of the billing and all of that, and they pay me. So that's slightly different from someone else who, when you get sales in the door, is when you get paid, right? So I get paid on a schedule on the 4th and the 18th. So I reconcile every 4th and 18th, and that's it, because that's when my paychecks come in. For someone, so I have clients who, when they get paid from a contractor, that's when they get paid. So they'll get paid. I have one client who just received in a $20,000 check. And so for her, that's a little bit of a different system, where we want to make sure. So Deb, from your perspective, those different accounts, that income account, is really good. Because if you get, let's even up the ante, say it's a $50,000 contract, right? And so you get paid $50,000 at one time. You don't need that all, most likely, for your monthly bills right now. So when that kind of income comes in, I typically recommend that we know what our budget is and we leave enough in there to cover several months, so that you are then, it all goes straight into the income account. You can divide up the percentages. You can, set aside your tax money. You can set aside your operating money, but your owner's draw, keep that at a steady pace. So you're not going to take $25,000 and dump it straight into your owner's draw account if you don't need $25,000 a month. If you need $5,000 a month, you move $5,000 to your owner's draw account and you leave the rest. And then the next month, you can take that $5,000 and put it into your owner's draw account. So you've got your tax bucket covered, you've got your profit covered, all of that is fine, but you're creating a paycheck system for yourself, rather than, hey, I got a $50,000 contract, I'm going to spend it all right now on all these projects I want to do. And then if you don't get another contract for 3 months, then you're screwed and you're scrambling. Right. So we want to create that consistency right away. Does that make sense? If at all possible. I know it's not always possible. Sometimes that's like we're working to get there, but that's the goal. Do I have separate accounts for marketing and continuing education? I don't, but some people do. So I have clients that like to separate out like an education expense that they, they say, I'm going to spend 20% every year on continuing education. I think that's beautiful. I love that. I probably spend more than that right now, because I have business coaches and things like that as well. So I use that partly just part of my operating expense. But if you have a tendency, I have clients who have asked for my help with this too. If you have a tendency to sign up for everything, right, and overdo, I don't even want to say overdo, but sometimes, you start taking in a lot of information, you do a lot of education, and you just keep signing up for things like, oh, it's just $1,000 here, $2,000 there, I'll just keep doing that. And I've had clients that are like, I need to like spend time integrating, right? I don't need another course. I don't need another thing right this second. That's a good way. If you need to constrain yourself, like give yourself a budget so that you stay within a parameter that you want, like energetically feels good for you. That's a good separation to make. Not to say that that's anyone on this call. I have had that. I've seen that happen with other people and had clients who literally asked me to tell them no. Like, if I tell you I want to do another program, you have to tell me to stop. I'm like, all right, I'll do it. I'll be the mean mom, I guess. But yeah,
boundary setter.
yeah, like you enforce my boundaries for me. Like, okay, I'll do it once, but marketing and those for me, I don't have a huge budget personally for marketing. I do a lot of that on my own right now. So I just fold that into operating expenses. But again, if it helps, if you read Profit First and you like resonate with having 10 to 15 accounts, do it. Like that's good too. You know, it's whatever works for you. What else? What else is coming up around dollar signs?
I just want to add in, like, if you do set aside like a marketing budget, typically for any startup, you have to think about probably 15 to 25% of your overall revenue should go into marketing. So think about like what the expenditures can be. And again, it is a write-off, you know, it has like a business expense. And then on average, like if you're, just, coasting along, you can bring that down anywhere from like 9 to 11% on average. So, and that's based on your gross projected revenue.
Interesting. Jennifer, what do you do?
I own a marketing agency, but I also coach people on how to build their brands. So
I love that. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I don't think anyone's ever given like a good, like, hey, this is a reasonable amount to expect to be spending.
Yeah, because as a new brand, right? Like you have to invest a lot of your efforts into marketing. A lot of business owners, put it on the back end because they think they can't invest, but that's the best way for you to actually grow. So
awesome. So you said about 10 to 15% on the front side.
So 15 to 25%, anywhere like,
25?
what?
25%?
Yeah, 15 to 25% on the high end. Yeah, 25 is pretty high, but there's, especially like B2C brands that they're like really aggressive and their early growth, they're investing a lot of their marketing budget on the higher side.
Right.
But you can, think about marketing, you can, bucket from PR to, digital marketing to, branding, right? So, you could wrap that into your overall marketing budget, influencer marketing, right? You can figure out how you want to break it down, but.
Interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
for sharing that. And one of the other pieces I didn't mention is that when we're looking, because we looked at like if this was your hypothetical $100,000 profit, right? That's what we were looking at. When we're looking at gross revenue instead, a lot of times that tax savings number comes down to 15. So if you're looking at a gross number rather than net, I do typically do 15% of the gross. And that, even though we're paying, when you like work it all the way out, it can be up to 40% of your income. Once you add your self-employment and your state taxes and your income taxes, that 15% of gross revenue typically takes care of that, right? Because you're saving 15% of a larger number rather than taking your smaller chunk and then pulling 40% off of that. Energetically, it feels a little bit better too, right? You're like, oh, here's my big number. I'm going to just kind of pull a little bit off of that, and it doesn't feel quite as quite as big of a chunk in that sense.
I can't wait to pay taxes. Like, I'm excited. Like, let's make money so we can pay taxes. I'm like,
oh my God, Deb, I love your attitude so much. I can't even tell you. You are like a bright shining light, and I love it. Literally that attitude. I spoke to another group earlier in the year, and they were all terrified of making money, and not in a way like, oh, I don't want to make any money, but they were afraid to make more money than they could deduct. And it was such an interesting conversation. And half of it was about opening up to the fact that if you plan for your income, when your income comes in, if you plan to save a little bit for taxes, you can make as much money as you fucking want to make, right? Like there's no limit if you allow yourself to plan on the front side rather than creating this artificial, I have to be able to deduct, where are my deductions so that I don't have to pay taxes? It frees up a lot of energy.
Yeah, one of the things I did is, because this is not my area of expertise, like I hired someone, to just handle my books and just make sure they tell me like what are all my like deductions and to like maximize how much I could deduct. So if you
Yeah,
have the means to do that, highly
Love it.
recommend it.
yeah, absolutely. And you should absolutely deduct everything that makes sense to deduct, but you should not limit yourself as to what you can make because you can't deduct, right?
Absolutely.
It's like a weird chicken and egg situation. And every business is different. I have clients who are consultants who work from home, and they'll deduct everything they can, but there's just not a lot of deductions to take when you are a consultant making, $400,000 from your home office. And there's no travel, right? For COVID years, there's no travel, no nothing, so there's a certain amount of like, hey, you know what? Just make the money, save for taxes, deduct every single thing that you can for sure. Don't lose out on it, but don't limit yourself because of it.
Yay. That was so
Any other
good.
questions?
My mom is my bookkeeper.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yes. And I am not a bookkeeper and I'm not a tax preparer either. So I definitely stay in my lane. And I, do a lot of coordinating, because those other professionals, like you definitely need a bookkeeper. You definitely need a tax preparer. And the financial advisor on top of that is, for a lot of people, the quarterback or the coordinator, or however you want to say that, the person that's looking at the whole situation and making sure that everyone has the same information. Because the CPA can't and usually won't tell you how to, they'll want to reduce your taxes, help you reduce taxes if they can, but they don't know how to help you save for retirement. They don't know how much you should save. They don't know how much you should put away for education if whatever goals are important to you. That's not their lane. So yeah, working together, having that team approach. And Jennifer, to your point, like that's not what I do. So yeah, like give it away to someone who does it really well so you can focus on your own zone of genius, truly.
Yes. Amazing. That was so good. Thank you so much, Hannah. Does anybody have any other questions? Will you put your contact information in the chat, please? So everybody has that.
Mm-hmm. I took a LinkedIn break for a hot minute. I needed a minute, but I'm on LinkedIn a lot, and my email, I'll put my email in here too. Did I spell that right? Yep, I did. Okay. And then I would love to share my, a couple of downloads with each of you. So I'll send those to you and you can send those out.
If you want to put them in the chat.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah. Are they PDFs?
Yes.
Yeah, just throw them in the chat.
Well, look at that. I learned something new today.
I think you can just drag and drop too.
Yeah. My writing.
Deb, do you want to, maybe we can do introductions. So do you want to tell everybody about your business?
Please.
So I own Hold Hearing Out Life Drama. It's a confidential listening service. People can choose 15, 30, or 45 minutes and have a listener hear them through phone, Zoom, or chat. And we quite simply just listen.
Awesome. I love your business. Jennifer, you gave us a little snippet, but do you want to do an introduction?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So I'm a branding strategist. I own a marketing agency. I specialize in helping entrepreneurs scale their business online through social media and content strategies. So they authentically show up online using their story to attract their ideal clients. And so basically, instead of trying to sell what you have, you're attracting your ideal client through how you show up, through messaging strategies and content development.
Awesome. We had a little chat earlier, which was awesome. And I appreciate that so much. So Tabitha is a relationship coach. She helps women who are watching their marriage fall apart, either go from clarity. I don't know. I've heard it so many times, but I'm messing it up somewhere, Tabitha. But she is a relationship coach. So she helps women from confusion to clarity. Exactly. She helps women from confusion to clarity, whether that be to stay in their marriage or choose another path. So she's awesome. And she has so much knowledge on so many different areas of business and life. So she's awesome to talk to. We do have like 25 minutes. So if anybody wants to like brainstorm about something or has a question about something, I know Tabitha can't talk, but she was talking in our last mastermind about wanting to write a book. So that was interesting, but, I wish she can talk so I can hear an update on that, but I would love for anybody to ask a question about anything that they want help on or brainstorm or anything. Hannah, how are you doing in your business?
Oh, it's been so awesome. I'm going to Instagram right now because Tabitha just put her Insta handle in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your
there you are.
Instagram.
Yeah, I'm gonna follow you there. So I actually just submitted a chapter for a book. I have done a ton of writing in general. Like I've always done a lot of writing, but I had never written a book, and that had always been something that was like, oh yeah, like that's in me somewhere too. So I had the opportunity to write a chapter in a book called Wealth Codes that's coming out August 22nd, I think. So
Wow.
excited about that. Yeah. And really it's been, Deb kind of mentioned this earlier too, right? Like talking about like the law of attraction, truly not so much just the law of attraction, but I feel like the work that I've done over the last 2 years, especially in like understanding more truly about like myself and my own triggers and my own fears and my own sets of resistance. One of the things that Abraham Hicks talks about a ton is feeling good, right? Like your job is to feel good, like just feel good and do things from a place of feeling good. And that's where the magic happens. And I can honestly say that like I in the last month even, I have turned this corner to feeling good probably like 80% of the day. And it's amazing. Like, so when I do feel like anxiety kind of flare up in my stomach or in my chest, I can like stop, and rather than it like being like a constant companion, I can stop and like identify it and like clear it out. And yeah, so it's been like a steady climb through the last couple of last year and a half really, and then over the last couple of 3-4 months, like things have actually been growing more steadily and more stably, rather than this thing, like it's starting to actually like do this thing, like yes.
That's so cool. I love that. So how many chapters, like, can you give us the inside scoop? Is it a business book? Are you putting some personal in it? How many chapters?
Yeah. So I think there are 25 authors on this one. The chapters were a little bit longer, I think, than you normally get. They were like 3,000 words. which a lot of times the multi-author books, they're like really short, right? So it was a little bit meatier. I got to write a little bit more. And it was first like my story and then the strategy. So it's like who are you? Why do people want to read what you're writing? And then what strategy can you give them on your topic? And that was a little different than what I talked about today, even because the strategy that I run my clients through it's actually that Light Up Your Desires PDF. And it's really like diving into what do you want and why? And then building out, like identifying that, discovering that, aligning to that, aligning your actions and your money, spending your money and your time in the direction of what you actually want, and then watching that expand. And so that's the like theme of my chapter. And the 4 themes in the book, it's like wealth as money, wealth as wellness, wealth as in spirituality, and wealth in experience, maybe something like that. So it's like, what does wealth mean in like different areas? And my area was actually money. So like, I can talk to that. That's good. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited for these kinds of opportunities. I've found like dropping in, sharing expertise in different group settings has been really, really helpful. Probably more so than any other kind of direct, I guess it's a part of marketing, right? But it's literally like me like doing the thing.
There's joy that comes with that, I think. When
Mhm.
when you get to do the thing that you love, exactly that law of attraction, like you light up because you're doing the thing that you love, and so the universe goes, oh, we should give her more of what she loves. We're happy here. This is what we're,
Yeah.
it's gonna come.
Yes.
You have endless energy because that's the endless supply. Because
Mhm.
it's not you like forcing the thing, it's coming naturally to you. So
Yeah.
it's exactly what we were talking about in Ball on the Call when I was like, follow your passion. I promise you.
I know. I'm like sitting here nodding my head.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jennifer, to that point, it's like the writing was where I was at for like a solid year, like just writing, just pouring my heart out into words. And this year, one of the reasons I've had a harder time posting on social lately is because I don't want to write. It's like I just want to talk to people. Like I'm in this talking mood instead.
talk.
Yeah,
Talk.
I just talk.
Do you do reels? Do you do like
Oh my, reels are so hard. They're so short.
That's why you make a series. So just talk for 20 minutes and break it down into like short snippets.
Jennifer's your girl.
Or use YouTube. Do the long thing that you love because you love the long thing. And then after you've done the long thing, then you go, oh, I bet I can make that shorter. And then you just go bloop, and you just take that, oh, that piece was really good. Chunk, bloop, bloop.
Or TikTok. I think they upped it to like 10 minutes on TikTok,
They
right?
did.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I
Yeah.
don't have that option yet.
Yes, I would love to. Yeah. Yeah, TikTok is great. I have a former Olympian and he like loves to talk as well. And so that's the thing. He has YouTube videos and he just started on TikTok. So TikTok is great because it's going to be great to help you grow your Instagram. And again, like you could be making 7 figures with under 1,000 followers. Like your following doesn't matter. What matters is really like how engaged they are and how valuable your content is. Because the more you're in alignment with who you really are, the more you're going to attract the right people, because actually you don't want more, you want quality.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. I started doing Facebook ads for like free influencers, which I was telling you about, Jennifer, earlier.
Mhm.
And like to make an account, you have to verify your email and then like actually create the account. So in the beginning, like anybody could sign up, anybody could show up in like searches, even if people were never even on it. So I made a like criteria. Basically, you have to like verify your account. You have to post a photo. You have to put in a description. You have to connect a social account because then it's like you're actually utilizing it. So like I have like 470 people, but people that actually show up in searches and like are engaged, it's like just over 100. So it's like, it doesn't matter how many signups I have. It's like how many people are actually engaged, you know, which like sucks because you're like, oh my God, I have like so many signups, but like they're not even verifying their email. So it doesn't
See,
does nobody
that's
any
the
good.
point. That's why it's like, you know, I have one client who they came to me and they had like a 15% retention rate. And like that means like the majority of their business came from Facebook ads, but they didn't retain them because they had no organic strategy or any way to keep them. So at the end of the day, they're just churning all this money to acquire these customers. And it doesn't mean anything because you're not keeping them. And 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. Like that Pareto principle never changes. So that's why it's like that the more you get the quality, like it's going to be so much better for you. And of course it's going to be like attrition and you're going to like lose out, like that's any business, but it's better when you're like having them through because that means that they're dedicated. That means they're actually going to show up and like be engaged in the community.
And then like brands and businesses like Deb that are reaching out to influencers are actually going to respond, you know, as opposed to like getting frustrated that no one's responding because they're not even utilizing it. So that's why we made like the search criteria a lot different because I don't want people to show up that aren't even utilizing it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you did that. It's awesome.
Yeah, but Facebook ads are not cheap. So we'll see. We're testing it out. I'm doing like a 3-month test.
Yeah, like literally marketing is testing and learning. And like the more you play around and the more you see like what's working, because like even what's working is not going to necessarily work in like 3 months time or maybe in 6 months time.
Mm-hmm.
So the more open you are to adapting, the better off you're going to be. Like be like water.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Just the flow, right?
As Bruce Lee would say.
What did you say, Deb?
I have a question. If we're going to mastermind, I really have a question. How do people honestly feel when you get a pop-up on a website as you're leaving? Like, are you going to actually read it and respond? Or is that like, don't bother me, I already clicked close?
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
So we're talking about ways to get into the market research to find out why people aren't booking yet. And one of the things that's been suggested is to do market research, and this would be one way to get people's feedback. I specifically am interested in the people's feedback who have made it to the website because we have people that are there, but they're not converting. They're not hitting that book button yet. So the question is, why is that happening? Are they? And so we're talking about creating a poll to put as a pop-up as people are leaving. And I'm not sure yet if that's a good idea or a really bad idea. I hate them. So I don't know.
But if people are leaving, they're leaving. So you might as well create a poll. And if they're going to leave anyways, if they're going to answer it, that's good. But I'm just wondering how would that happen? Like they click the X.
Yeah, they click the X. There's this through Wix, they have different things that you can create a pop-up. So you have to add an app to Wix. So there's an app called Privy, and you can put the app, you can create your pop-up on Privy and then integrate that into your Wix website. And that's what I'm looking at doing to create. So when people exit, then they get the pop-up and then get the feedback. That's my thought.
Do you have an email list?
So yes, and I hate email too. So essentially I'm a business owner who hates marketing.
Okay, email, as much as you hate it, you need to utilize it like so much. And email is like where you should send that questionnaire because these are people that gave you their email. They have some sort of interest. So if they're not signing up for some reason, you can ask them why. Like create a Google form with some questions and just send it to them and be like, hey, you know, I'm a new business owner. I would love your input, no hard feelings. Like if you could take 5 seconds and just answer these questions for me, it would create great insight. Jennifer.
Came from people that we know. So I'm not sure that's really the people I'm looking for the feedback from. So
I would like, I think those suggestions are great. There's no harm in doing it. Remember, you are not always your customer, your ideal customer. And so you just try different things. I would actually do like a focus group. You can, pay people like $5 Starbucks gift cards and like post it in like, any of these women's marketing, groups that can take a look for you, like anywhere your ideal client is. I would suggest like do several different things to see. Do you also have like Hotjar installed or like any sort of like heat maps to see like where you're losing them?
So I don't have Hotjar installed, no. People typically spend a significant amount of time on the website, so they're tooling around. The average time is about 1:30 to 3 minutes. So people are actually looking thoroughly, they're reading thoroughly, but then not looking. So
I have
Okay.
another suggestion, kind of what Jennifer was saying. I did that. I posted in Facebook groups and I offered something for market research, but I made sure that the people that I talked to were relevant. So I created a Google form and like a bunch of people said like, yes, I'd love to help. I'd love to help. So I said, hey, do you mind like filling out this Google form just to see like, if obviously I'm looking for like female founders, so I was like, are you a female founder? Like, what industry are you in? What's your Instagram? Blah, blah, like all these questions. And then I reached out to them and said, hey, you'd make a perfect fit for my market research. I'd love to offer you. I was doing $20 because I wasn't doing a lot. But offering them something like Jennifer said, yeah, I did market research and it was awesome. And so many women in these groups, Deb, I'll invite you to a few of them. All they want to do is help. So they're more than willing to help you. They're more than willing to spend like 15, 20 minutes to help you grow.
okay, thanks. I'd appreciate it. I'm ready. I'm
What's your website?
hearingoutLifeDrama.com.
Okay, because if they're not booking, there's many reasons why people don't, book a call or take action to do something. And it could be from messaging, it could be how the UI is set up, like there's many things. So definitely doing some market research, like focus groups, I think will really be helpful, and seeing like where you're losing them. The fact that they're spending 1:30 to 3 minutes on your site is amazing. That means that they're not bouncing. So that's good.
It's really good.
That's really good. That's really good.
I'm very excited about that. Yes.
Yes. So that means that they may not understand what they have to do in order to take action, or they don't for some reason are not really seeing the value of what it means for them right now. But I'd be curious. I'm gonna check it out for sure.
Deb, do you know where they're coming from?
A lot of them right now, I'm running some ads on Snapchat. Many of them are coming from there currently because that's where I'm running ads. But it's not, I don't think it's all coming from there. There's also people coming from all of the social media channels that we're doing. So yeah.
Can I ask you why you're doing ads on Snapchat? I'm just asking because I haven't been on Snapchat in so long. So I'm curious why Snapchat specifically.
So Snapchat, just the in comparison to Facebook, Snapchat has a crap ton more help in terms of how to learn to utilize their advertising. So I am going full bore with Snapchat because they're providing me great personal support and teaching to learn how to do this, that I'm then going to apply other places and have applied to Pinterest. I've run ads on Pinterest as well. I've run ads on Facebook, Facebook/Instagram. But what I'm learning from Snapchat, because their person's so good, that's part of it. Also, Snapchat users are 17% more likely to be an impulse buyer. So that factors in for me too. I think especially for somebody who is thinking they need help now, having that impulsivity component. And I don't really feel like Facebook users or Instagram users, they don't really have that component. So, and also the demographics. So you might think that Snapchat, the demographic is, is that younger zone. And to some extent it is, but it also, there are users that connect with family, just like Facebook and whatnot at the beginning, right? So we were getting the other generations to come in. So the platform is actually a lot more diversified than I thought it was when I first looked. I was like, I'm not sure I want to spend money on Snapchat ads. I'm like, are my people even here? And then I did the research and I'm like, my people are here. And
That's
they're really
awesome.
great help. And so why wouldn't I utilize the platform that's good? The challenge with Snapchat is that in creating the marketing ads, you have to be extremely targeted and quick. So you've got, they recommend no more than 7 seconds. So you have to create something that's going to get attention and create interest. I have the advantage that hearing out life drama gets people's attention. They're like, what's that? I've never heard of that. So just the name of the business is helpful. And consequently, that as soon as you get that curiosity factor engaged, then they're more likely to swipe up. So yeah.
Just looking at your website, I'm curious about like the wish, like what's the kind of wish in your logo?
The dandelion?
Yeah, the dandelion.
So the dandelion is really, I talked about this once on TikTok. The dandelion for me, when I was a kid, I was so fascinated by dandelions, and my dad came home and he got very angry with me with the dandelion. And so for me, it's really about reclaiming and believing in myself and trusting that whatever we really believe in can come about. So this is it for me with the business.
I love that. I have to like listen to your introductions, but I'm on the website, but I'm wondering if you could like leverage some facts about how cathartic it is to just have someone listen, one, and also two, like how just speaking and talking about, challenges and, troubling times in your life, how that takes away stress and anxiety, like with numbers. And that, because I think maybe sometimes people could say, well, what is the purpose of just talking this out and having someone listen?
Mhm.
Well, obviously the benefit all this as the business owner.
So you're
actually a
talking
good
about sheer
point.
numbers. Are you a show me the data person? Is that what you're saying?
I just think, like succinctly show like the value right away.
So Deb, like when you're doing your reels and stuff, I think you're approaching it like, have you, is your son leaving the house and you need somebody to talk to, like hold listens, hearing out life drama, so you're now like your reels and stuff like that are like situations that people would need you. So I think what Jennifer is saying is like approach it from the back end. Like, okay, this mom is her kids are leaving the house to go to college. She's like so devastated. Like, how would she benefit? Like, do you want to feel more at ease or more comfort after your son leaves the house? I'm just using an example, but is that kind of what you're talking about? Like leaning more towards the feeling of people after they talk?
That's really challenging. And I thought about that a lot. The real issue with that is everybody's going to start from a different place. So consequently, what everyone takes away from a conversation is going to be different. So I really can't promise anyone you're going to feel this. I actually created a reel about that that's coming up. It'll be, I don't know where Linda's got it in the pipeline, but I created it and it's there somewhere. We're like 3 weeks out with content, so it'll come up anyway. But yes, we have been thinking about that as well. I don't know, because it's different for each person. I don't know how to address it well, and addressing it like lots of different ways. I mean, I just really honest about that in the reel that I said. I'm like, look, I don't know what the benefit will be from you, but if you don't try it, you won't know.
Yeah. Wasn't it like a few masterminds ago where we were kind of brainstorming this thing for you too? And we were just like, it kind of is like a
the exhale,
right?
which could tie back to the dandelions as well. And almost like a wish that someone would listen. You could, because a lot of times people are frustrated that they don't feel heard or held or
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're providing people
Right.
within a judgment-free zone. So even though you don't necessarily know the transformation, because it's different for everybody, the
Mhm.
one thing that you can guarantee is that everybody is going to be seen and held and understood.
And help to know that they matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying leverage statistics, right? I mean, even in this horrible, horrific shooting, and I don't know enough about the shooter, right? But at the end of the day, people are angry. Why are they angry? Because they're not seen, valued, or understood. And you are basically an entry point to that.
Mhm.
Without a coach, without therapy, it's an easy way to get help.
Mhm.
Even if you like leverage some of the suicide, statistics, and like this is your realm that you're really helping people. Mental health is very big. So
Yeah. We want to make sure we stay away from suicide though, because we're not a crisis line. And even though I'm trained to handle that, if we would have somebody, and I'm going to get more training for my team. I don't feel like we will refer if somebody calls in, with that issue, but we're not wanting to attract that. We're not wanting to get people who
no, I
are,
understand. I
Yeah.
just mean in general, like if you're thinking about like why how this progresses, right? Like from someone going from okay to I want to kill myself, right? There's the progression. And I'm saying that you are helping people along that journey so it doesn't progress.
Yeah,
Right. So I'm just
that's the
saying that,
goal. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what we want to do. Absolutely.
Yeah, so you're definitely involved in those conversations. Just like if you, I get the hesitancy of like why you don't want to attract that because you're not certified, but your business very well sits in that realm.
And when I glanced at the website, one of the things that jumped out at me was like I wanted some sort of video on the front page. And I don't know if that makes sense. Like if you're asking people to talk, like having something, maybe it is that sigh. Maybe it's like something that is that like that sense of relief, or like just like a quick video of something that like engages in the, oh, I can talk, right? Like for some reason it felt very like here's words and numbers, and then here's the call, right? Call now, rather than seeing something that is going to like pull me into like, oh, I can talk to this person, and it feels a little bit more
Like
We
there's
do
a
have a video
connection.
there, but it's not on the homepage, so we could move it. It
right,
might still be
exactly,
there.
yeah, like I had to, when I went and looked, I'm like, oh, I could look at those later, but yeah, having something that's more of a,
Mhm.
I don't know if it's cinematic or something like that, where it is more that feeling of frustration and the feeling of relief that, oh, there's a woman, and the avatar of the person that you're wanting to attract, right? Like the sad, the mom who's sad because her child is leaving, or, like those little situational things.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
You're
I don't want
welcome.
to take up the whole time, but I'm grateful.
No, thank you. This was great.
Yay. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Hannah, thank you. Jennifer and Deb, thank you so much for joining. Hold on, let me stop the recording.